Can't hold it much longer. Gotta let go so I can be free.
It's almost that time. Super Bowl Sunday, and then it's all about baseball. Don't at me about anything else. I don't care.
You're right. You are right.
Yeah. There's a lot of crossover with baseball and football fans. I would say more than any sport. Agree?
Agreed. I think, I don't mean to interrupt you, I think every sport should be done and then the next sport should begin, but that's just me. You know what I mean?
How does that work?
Get the full season of baseball, then football starts the next week after. Like that's how, but whatever.
How would we do that, though?
I don't know. We would cut down on some baseball games.
No, we can't do that because there's a lot of people that don't give a crap about some of the other major pro sports, right? I often used to get like, oh, well, you know, this NHL or NBA game's going to take ratings away from the, yeah, sure. Like in the same market, team's really good. Okay. But I think crossover talk can get overrated with certain sports in my mind, Kratz. I think football is the one, though. Football is the one that obviously is top dog in the U.S., but also specifically takes away from baseball a lot.
It does, but I think baseball holds its own towards the end of their seasons. That's, you know, football starts up in September, rolls through October, but the kind of early games in football get kind of excited, but then the playoffs, they hold their own. I mean, they've taken Sunday playoff games away. I get that. That's good.
All right, we'll talk more about the disparity between the NFL and MLB later. I'm excited to get into that, but let's start with a crime case.
Charging the mound.
Charging the mound, talking about Ippei Mizuhara, the former assistant and interpreter for Shohei Ohtani. He received his sentencing, 57 months in prison. It begins on March 24th. And this is a tweet from Sam Blum that I'm reading right now, covers the Angels. Ippei will have 3 years of supervised release and is ordered to pay restitution of nearly $17 million to Shohei Ohtani. Government got the sentence that they requested because Ippei asked for 18 months. The judge specifically noted Ippei's pre-sentence letter to the court. The judge said that Ippei misled the court and omitted key facts. Ippei apologized to Ohtani and others in a brief statement before sentencing. Both Ippei's attorney and prosecuting attorney said they expect Ippei to be deported after his sentence. He's a lawful permanent resident, but not a U.S. citizen. Ohtani filed a victim impact statement for the judge before sentencing. It is up to the victim if they want the statement to be publicly available. Ohtani's statement was filed under seal. I want to actually start by pointing this part out, Todd Father. When we got that letter and he was asking for sentencing at 18 months versus 57 months, I specifically pointed out how gross it was. We went almost line by line. You can go back to videos of ours and find it. So I'm glad that the judge and I were on the same page. I'm not always on the same page with every judge, but I'm glad that I was on the same page with this judge. And the two parts that I want to remind people about are, one, Ippei wanted people to feel bad that he was Ohtani's assistant and had to help him with things like groceries and his pet having to go to the groomer. Meanwhile, Ohtani's paying for like $60K of dental work for this guy. So they clearly were close friends and both helping each other out. And also, Ippei clearly had no idea how apps work because he could have done most of the assistant work that he needed to get done via apps, and he was making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And Todd Filer, this is the one that pissed me off the most. He had to include that part of his difficult labor that he was getting not compensated enough for was sitting through the prenup agreement that Ohtani has with his current wife. That's freaking gross. Nobody needed you to put that in a letter. That is a freaking low blow. You were asking for a bad sentence. We all saw that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unfold here, man. I know I thought this was kind of like almost at the tail end, but this is just the beginning. I mean, you have to pay $17 million in restitution. Where is he getting that money? First and foremost,
he's not paying it.
And that's almost 100% factual. I don't know where he's getting it. This guy is in some deep trouble, and what he did, and for people to understand, sure, you're going to be skeptical at times. The biggest name in sports, pretty much, or in baseball, excuse me, not sports, but he's a really big name in sports as well. Shohei Ohtani. You kind of think like back, well, did he have something to do with this? That was probably most people's first thoughts, just because of what's happened in baseball in years past, and some people getting in trouble with sports and gambling and with money and all that stuff. But this is definitely not it, and I need people to understand. It seems like Shohei did not have anything to do with this, and Ippei's in a lot of trouble, man. There's a lot to unfold. He has a lot going on his plate in the wrong direction, and nobody's feeling bad for him. That's the biggest thing. He wants people to feel bad for him over little things. Who wouldn't sit through a prenuptial agreement knowing they're getting paid no matter what? So there's a lot to unfold. There's a lot to talk about, but this guy's in some trouble, and I'm sure when this is all said and done and the prison's all said and done, he's going to be out of here ASAP.
I hope that Shohei didn't view Ippei as close of a friend as I know some of the other translators that I've played with, guys who have had translators. Like, they really view their translator, who is also technically an assistant, how it works out, like, as a friend. They view him as a friend, somebody that lives with them, somebody that, hangs out with their wife sometimes. Like, there's a lot of trust there. And if you viewed him as a friend and a friend did this to you, it will most likely have closed Shohei even more off than he's already been closed off. But Derek in the chat was saying that, maybe he should defer that $17 million because he's never going to be able to pay it back unless Ippei writes a book. Just saying.
Ooh.
I'm just saying.
Wait, I'll take it a step further. Documentary on one of the streamers. Those make even more money these days.
Yeah. Maybe I'm too old school saying a book, but like,
hey, you ain't old school. That's true.
I just think it's a clear case. The whole thing is a clear case of Ippei being a liar. He lied to Shohei. He tried to lie to the judge during the sentencing, and he's probably lying to himself. I know I can get out of this. I know I can figure out how to get out of this debt. I can figure out how to come back from that last parlay that I just lost. And he just kept lying. He's lied all the way up till the end.
And the U.S. came down with the hammer. There was someone in the chat like, would a normal, more under the radar case produce the same result? I really honestly don't know the answer. Does the U.S. try to sometimes make an example out of these high profile cases? No, I have no idea. I really don't know the answer.
Yeah,
I'm glad that we can talk about it.
Yeah, I don't think we go on a deep dive of that, but either way, you're not above the law, and I think, it's going to catch up to you, one way or another, and it caught up quick. This was a quick one. This wasn't like down the road either. So, this is it's a shame. That's it. That's all I could say. It's a shame that this happened. It hurts interpreters that come over here and fight to help out, whatever. Whether it's Spanish, Japanese, Chinese, whatever language barrier that the player has. And now these guys, puts them in check as well. Like, hey, am I doing the right thing? Did I make sure I cross my T's and dot my I's to make sure I don't get in trouble, even though, maybe I needed this money because he told me I can, whatever it is. It's kind of scary if you want the truth for these guys now.
We just had Tim Anderson on, and he was talking about how, he started to play bad because, there's some things going on in his life. I think people forget that part of, like, baseball players, athletes. Things off the field will 100% affect things on the field. Makes it so amazing what Shohei did this year. He was able to rehab, which can be just draining in itself, and he had to deal with this. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, Ippei's gone. I got another translator. Ho-hum, whatever. Like, this is a huge thing. This is a huge thing. And looking back on the last 7-8 years of his life, like, this guy's been around, and this guy has done all this stuff to me, and he was still able to block all that out and do what he did this season.
And yes, a question from Susie. Did he lie about his job history? Yeah. When they were doing that deep dive, there were other falsehoods. So it made it an easier case to see that there's a lot of fraud and scam for him to get to this place. Some people go, how did Ohtani not know? How does he not know that this is being taken from him? He's super rich. He's super baseball focused. And newsflash, not everybody checks all of their bank accounts all the time when they have tens of millions of dollars coming into them. I don't speak from experience, but he's not the first athlete, celebrity, rich person in general to get swindled. Not even close.
No.
Not even close. And it's not even like he found it. Let's put it this way. I know a guy, one of my close friends, that was making $15 million for the previous 3 seasons. So he had made $45 million. He did not own a car. He rented a place, and the only thing that he owned was a facility like a hitting facility that his brother ran back in another state. That's the only things that he owned. I was like, what do you do with your money? He's like, I'm really not sure. So he was getting $15 million a year coming in. And the car that he did drive around the city he was in was paid for by like an appearance that he did. And this was a multi-year all-star. Like, it's just not, people don't understand that. And this is partially why athletes lose their money sometimes too, is because they don't know. They're just like, I just get a check and it's cool and I can buy whatever I want.
And normal people have to manage a lot more things in life than abnormal people who have a lot more money and fame, right? You're a super famous person. You've got a publicist, an assistant, maybe a secretary, a banking person, right? They end up having like 20, 30 people on their payroll. Things can get out of hand. Yeah, I want to finish with this because I didn't comment on the part you mentioned, Kratz. Man, it really affected Ohtani. I mean, we didn't even see him pitch this year. This past season, dude didn't even step foot on the mound. Oh, wait, hold on. I heard actually he had a big elbow surgery. Well, the numbers weren't the same. He actually ended up stealing way more bases than ever and was a home run monster as a DH with the Dodgers on a World Series winning team. So, wow, really felt like he was affected behind the scenes. This actually plays to the point of someone who doesn't pay attention to a lot off the field, and he is completely baseball obsessed, so much so that he doesn't even let an off the field thing affect him, or at least affect his on-field performance. Because yes, people would be rattled. Let's finish with this. Todd Father, you get home one day, you find out someone stole half your bank account. Your thoughts on your playing performance the next day?
Oh man, I don't even know if I'd make it to the field. If you want the truth, I'd have to make something up. But it wouldn't be a good day for me or my family. I would just try and get by, and then hopefully the All-Star break comes in and I get 4 or 5 days off. They'll figure it out.
Todd Father would be using his baseball bat for other reasons. I kid. We might visit the Todd Father later. But anyway, let's swing back with Ken Rosenthal. We'll ask him about this. We'll ask him about his column this morning about a salary cap. We'll ask him about the Yoan Moncada signing for the Angels, who are becoming the White Sox left side of the infield. Ooh, hearts. All right, here we are. We're back, FT fan. We'll be pretty good with you today on answering as many questions as possible. Jen said, Todd Father, cut down baseball games? How dare you?
Who said that?
Jen in the chat. I mean, there's some
Come
fans
on, man,
that
that's
only
a lot of
want
games
baseball.
now, girlfriend.
What do you
Come
want?
on
How
now.
many do you want?
I want 5 months. I don't want 6 months. 5 months is good. What is that? 150. You take some. No, yeah. What is that? 150-ish. But you take out some for 5 months. You get 2 days off, so that's 10. Yeah, 140.
140. I mean,
Todd,
I
you
don't
want
think you'll ever
140?
get close to there.
140.
Are you cool with taking a 15-ish% pay cut for everyone's paychecks? Maybe more?
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Now, 140 is a heck of a lot. It's the most games ever played in sports. That's a boatload of games, not including playoffs. How you doing? And spring training. How do you do?
I don't like it, Todd. I don't like it.
Spring training's a little lengthy for me, but I understand the business component that will never take away from it. Those communities give a lot of money to basically MLB to be able to have games played down there and tourism money. So I don't think that is going to be a part of the equation, but that's my take. You guys?
I think if you have to have all the spring training, business component or not. The pitchers have to be there the whole time. To me, if I'm running an org and I'm trying to be progressive, I'm going to see Bryce Harper. I'm going to see Kyle Schwarber. I'm going to see Trey Turner. I'm seeing all them like March 10th. I don't need you to be there for more than 3 weeks. Like, let's get it going. Let's speed it up. I need about 2.5 weeks of at-bats for you. If you want to show up early, hang out, hit some golf balls, great. But it's a little much when it's like, well, we're going to work them in three innings the first game of the year, and then 4 innings, and then 2 days off. Nah.
It's because the guys keep getting younger, Kratz, and there's free food at the team facility.
Oh, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
All you can eat buffet. That's why I think players will be like, oh, should I show up right before or after lunch? Well, nowadays they're showing up before lunch. The food got much better. They messed up the CBA a couple years ago because all they were asking for was like food and luxury trips and all that, and not money. But they did get better food, and so they show up early. Hit the inside scoop with FT Senior Insider Ken Rosenthal. And Ken, let's start with a signing. 1 year, $5 million for Yoan Moncada, who has not played much lately and goes from the White Sox to the Angels. We might have Tim Anderson and Yoan Moncada as the starting shortstop and third baseman on opening day, being that I think Zach Neto is going to start the season late for the Angels. I was shocked to see the signing, but I want to get your thoughts. Uh-oh. You guys hearing Ken?
Not
he's
Ken.
muted.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Hold up.
My bad.
No, you're good.
He's back.
Let's re-rack it.
He's
Re-rack
back.
it. Right back to Kenny Ballgame.
So
okay, go ahead, Ken.
What I was going to say was that the Angels know they can't count on Anthony Rendon to play third base, to be healthy. That hasn't worked out for them, right? So Moncada gets a chance here to really do some things. And what's interesting to me about this, guys, is to see the White Sox players outside of the White Sox environment. Now, obviously, Tim Anderson had some problems in his career, and there was some stuff he has referred to, personal things going on. Okay, and he got hurt. Moncada has also had some injuries, but Moncada, Eloy Jimenez, who's now with Tampa Bay, these guys maybe got too comfortable there. I'm not saying that for sure, but it's possible when you get a contract at a young age and you're the only organization you've ever known that can happen. So now their careers are at stake. Tim Anderson's is certainly at stake. Moncada too, and Eloy. So I'm interested to see how they do now where there's a different kind of motivation. They're all extremely talented. A couple of years ago, these guys were really well thought of in the game. And it seems to me that not all three of them lost it. We'll see which ones can bounce back.
And all three of them were on the 2021 postseason White Sox. Like it's not that long ago that this happened. Was there other interest in Moncada? Because $5 million seems like a price tag that is indicative to other interest.
There was other interest. And what was interesting about his situation is that he was waiting for Bregman. And that indicates to me that he had interest from some of the teams that are on Alex Bregman, whether it's Detroit, Chicago, Cubs, Boston Red Sox, Toronto, whoever those teams were. We know who those teams are. Houston's another one. And I don't know which teams specifically were after him, but he did have that interest. And eventually what I heard yesterday is that he just got tired of waiting for Bregman and he wanted to make a decision and he wanted to get going. And the Angels were there for him, and that's why he chose them.
Okay. I'll take us in a different direction. Owners meetings this week. You have a fresh column in The Athletic this morning about the salary cap And I'll just preface my question with this. There's probably quite a few owners or sons of owners who now kind of control the team who either weren't really old enough to remember the 1994 strike and missed games or don't care. I don't know. But your thoughts on the salary cap conversations going on down in Florida this week?
What prompted me to write this column, Scott, were some public comments that have been made recently. Hal Steinbrenner was one. David Stearns had some things to say, and David Rubenstein, the Orioles owner. Now, in addition to those comments, I have heard privately from ownership types, people in the game, that this talk is just continuing, that the owners are eagerly looking forward, not all of them, but some of them, to a showdown with the union over a salary cap after the labor agreement expires December 1st, 2026. And the point of the column was just to say, okay, you guys want this? Do you really want to go back to where we were, losing games and being in the same situation the sport was in after the strike of 1994-95? The sport was in a horrible place. Fans were ticked off, and rightly so. And it took first Cal Ripken in 95 with the consecutive games record once play resumed, and then really the McGuire-Sosa home run chase, which we now know was tainted, in 98 for the sport to really recover. Now, some owners might believe, and some fans might believe, it's worth it to miss games, miss even a season to get a salary cap. To me, that's insane. And there is a reasonable discussion to be had about whether a salary cap would be good. That's an intellectual exercise. I have no problem with that discussion. The problem with that discussion is that the union is so adamantly opposed to a cap that what we're looking at, if the owners try to impose it, as they've tried to impose it virtually every labor negotiation, is a work stoppage. You're going to have a lockout. And again, at a time when the sport is finally entering a bit of a renaissance here. Record revenues of $12.1 billion last year. $12.1 billion. Don't tell me the sport is broken. Tell me how to fix the legitimate problem that exists in revenue disparity between the large market and small market teams. There are ways to do it without a cap. Some of the owners don't want to think about it. They just want the cap. It's the easiest solution for them, and so be it. But what I intended to do with that column was kind of just send out a warning. This is not good. We should not be thinking this way. I know people are thinking this way, and I'm not going to change their minds, obviously, but I just felt that it needed to be said.
Yeah, it was great. And I mean, if we force teams to use revenue and revenue sharing on player payroll, which they say they can't afford, that would also be pretty effective. There's not really severe rules in place besides the thought of a grievance if a team's getting out of control on that front. So I want to read a portion of a comment from your column in The Athletic, because I do love to dive into the comments a little bit, because I think this is where fans are split. Some fans are educated and
Yes.
realize that their team is not carrying the weight, okay? And then here's the other side where the smear campaign happens. This fan goes, I'm a fan of a team that is way below my $125 million. Oh, because he wants there to be a floor of 125 mil and a cap of like low 200s. He said, my team has no shot. I have no interest in attending their games and spending money when the owner does not spend money to improve. It's going to get good. Watch. In fact, to give you a hint, my team was the worst team in baseball history last year and actually cut payroll this year. And the ticket office has the gall to continue to call me to buy tickets. In closing, honestly, I hope a lockout after the 26th season because he wants this to get fixed. I'm reading this thinking it's going to be one of these other teams. And I'm like, the Chicago White Sox, that's who this fan is going for here and is shilling for?
Now, the White Sox, Scott, don't have a revenue problem, or at least they shouldn't. They have an ownership problem. And that is where this starts. Now, for a number of teams, and I kind of addressed this in the column, a new ownership class would be welcome. And we're seeing some different kinds of owners coming into the game, some private equity types, not necessarily going to be spending aggressively. We don't know, but they have money, right? So with the Chicago White Sox, with other clubs, it is an ownership problem. Now, I'm not dismissing, and fans often get confused when I write these things. I'm not dismissing the problems that do exist. They are legitimate problems. Pittsburgh and Cleveland, for example, cannot compete the way the New York Mets and Los Angeles Dodgers can, or at least they cannot spend the way those teams do. But there are other low revenue teams, Tampa Bay, Milwaukee, Cleveland is actually one of them, that compete very well despite the restrictions that they're under. So the answer to me is to help those teams further. Now, you do that maybe through draft and giving them more picks, better positions. You could do that. You do that through different kinds of revenue sharing. And specifically what I mentioned in the column would be making the luxury tax penalties at the top even steeper, because those teams get 50% of the luxury tax proceeds, or about 50%. And there are other things as well, including a floor, that should be considered. There are a lot of levers to be pulled here without going to the extreme of a salary cap that would only lead to a work stoppage. So what I'm hoping is that this is the typical saber rattling, the beating of the drums that takes place before every CBA negotiation, and that eventually cooler heads will prevail. But what concerns me is the talk, at least in my recollection, has started even sooner this time, and the talk is even more vehement among certain ownership types about getting this salary cap done. And again, you want to take the sport down a bad path? Be my guest, go do it. It's not healthy. It's not a good thing.
We had Jim Bowden on just the other day, and he talked about being in those owners' meetings when his owner was suspended for the year. Is there a clear delineation between this group of owners and that group of owners? Like, is it like, well, the teams that are in the smallest markets are all on this side of salary cap argument, and the teams in the biggest are on the other side?
It's not that clear. And there are times, Eric, where there's some crossover, I guess you would call it. I am quite confident saying there are certain large market teams that would want a salary cap. Actually, all owners probably would want a salary cap because it limits their spending, right? Kind of saves them from themselves, which is what the owners have always asked the players to do for them. Save us from ourselves. So it's complicated, of course. And the commissioner has an idea now about kind of bringing the television packages, all the streaming packages under one umbrella, the league's umbrella. And with that, if you had that, then perhaps you could justify a cap to the larger market teams. It's complicated. I don't know how it would work. I don't know why the large market teams would give up their competitive advantage that way, but maybe to get a cap, they would. So I don't know where it's going, but it's not always as clear as large market versus small market. And in terms of if you polled all 30 owners about whether they want a cap, I expect all 30 would say yes. Now the question is how to get it in place and whether it's actually practical. And my point is, in this particular argument is that it's not practical.
Ken, I would have you read it, but I'm sure you don't have your own article pulled up. The last three sentences, I'm going to read it for you, so hopefully it doesn't feel like literature cannibalism by me reading your own writing here, but it's you said in the last three sentences of your article, it was tremendous. Their sky is falling, quote, sky is falling act is already growing tiresome. Fix the sport some other way. Or sell your damn team. That was just the best way to finish the article, so I appreciate that, Ken.
Oh, thanks, Eric. And again, these are complicated conversations that have to take place because the economics of the sport are complex. They're difficult because you have a sport that has 30 franchises in which the primary revenue driver is local revenue. It's not like the NFL when you have a national television contract and that is the primary revenue. Here, it's local and markets obviously are not equal in size. I don't know that the sport is a competitive problem as much as it has a revenue disparity problem. And I guess it's always going to have that. It's kind of hard to get around. But again, a salary cap, you might think it's an answer, but it's an answer that's going to bring the sport to a place where it doesn't want to be. And I remember the strike of 1994-95, and I remember how ticked off fans were, and I remember how difficult it was to kind of get back going again for the sport in terms of revenue and popularity, all of that. You can make the argument that the sport has never fully recovered. I don't know that I would go that far. If you have a stoppage in which part or all of a season is lost in 2027, it's going to be a big problem for a sport that, again, I'm going to repeat it, $12.1 billion in revenue last season, and that was a record.
Unbelievable. Talking about money, Pete Alonso finally got signed with the Mets. Now on to, I think, the biggest name that's still out there, Alex Bregman There's been talks of him maybe going back to Houston. What is the latest you've heard on him? And will we be hearing a signing here pretty soon?
Todd, the answer to that question, actually both questions, is I don't know. Now, I can tell you what I've heard. What I've heard consistently are the same teams. It's the Cubs, it's the Tigers, it's the Red Sox, the Blue Jays, and the Astros. Those are the teams that have had some level of interest. Now, let's go one by one. The Astros have their offer out there. It was 6 years, 156. It is reported that they went up a little bit and it still wasn't good enough. Okay, that's one team. The Cubs, I don't believe they have the willingness or the financial flexibility from their owner to go 6 years. Tigers, I don't believe they want to go 6 years because they're sitting on Javi Baez's contract and it's an albatross, and that is informing their thinking, maybe not the right way, but it is, on Bregman. The Red Sox, they need a right-handed bat. They needed a right-handed bat since last year, and I do not know, and I cannot figure out, other than financial restrictions, why they have not been more aggressive on that front. They could use Bregman. The Tigers could use Bregman. The Cubs could use Bregman. The Blue Jays, of course, could use him as well, and maybe they're a team that would go 6 years, and maybe like Alonso, like Soto, and like others, he just is not willing to go there. But the question now for me is, does Bregman end up somewhat like Alonso, shorter deal with opt-outs, what Scott Boras, the agent, calls a bridge contract that has worked for some and not for others? Or does Bregman ultimately get the 6-year offers that we keep hearing about, 6 or 7 years? That's where this is going to turn or hinge. Now, when he gets a 6-year offer and it's reported, that means nothing to me. It could be 6 years, $60 million. It's not something he's taking. Now, I'm not saying it is, but my point is, even if he has 6 years, if he doesn't have the right dollars, it doesn't matter. So again, that to me is the real question here. Does Bregman end up with the length of deal that he wants, or does he end up with one of these shorter bridge contracts with the early opt-outs and the ability to go back into the market again?
All right, we just followed all the crumbs around in a circle for Bregman. Does all this lead to something with Arenado? Nolan Arenado is still sitting there in St. Louis because now you hear possibly these teams. Does it lead to something like almost immediately afterwards?
That's a good question. I don't know about immediately, Eric, but certainly these two players are linked. And Arenado needs Bregman to pick a spot. If Bregman goes to, say, Detroit, well, then Boston is open for Arenado, if Boston is interested. And it's not exactly clear how interested they are. And, of course, this will be a negotiation with the Cardinals about how much money they would be picking up. And it would be a negotiation with Arenado, who has a no-trade clause. Boston is a team where he would like to play. I would expect that if the Yankees got involved, he'd be willing to play for the Yankees. And, of course, they have a question now of who is going to be in their infield with Jazz Chisholm either third or second. There are probably other teams he would go to at this point because he does want out, but the question then becomes, okay, are those teams viable, and would he really, in the end, say yes? So, yes, Bregman's situation does have an effect on Arenado's, and I expect that Bregman will need to be resolved first in one way or another before Arenado can be resolved. Now, it's possible, I guess, thinking out loud here, that if Boston eventually signals to Arenado, listen, we're not doing Bregman, let's go, then Arenado could go first. But we're sitting here with this giant staring match between the teams and Bregman, the Cardinals and Arenado, and all these things going on. And right now it's February 7th. The first camps are opening this weekend, and these two guys are still out there.
It is exhausting. Okay, let's finish with this. Criminal case comes to an end. Ippei, Shohei Ohtani's interpreter, receives a good chunk of time in prison. He asked for 18 months. He ends up getting 57 months. Just final thoughts, really, because I don't think we're going to be bringing up this case too much more after this.
Well, I continue to hear from people, mostly on social media, but even friends of mine, who say, I don't get it, man. There's no way Shohei couldn't have known. Something's fishy. And listen, from the outside, absolutely, this is a weird deal. And yeah, something was fishy. However, do we have proof of any of it? No. And if you're saying to me, Ippei just took the fall for Shohei, they're taking care of him, really? He's going to spend almost 5 years in jail, or at least that's what his sentence is going to be. We have a government report that was pretty airtight about Ippei's activities. We have no evidence, none, literally none, that anything untoward has taken place. So when you tell me, Ken, you guys aren't doing a good job reporting, something happened here, yeah, I get it. That's fine. But show me the evidence. Show me anywhere where there's been evidence that this is anything but Ippei stealing from Shohei. And believe me, reporters, including myself, were really checking into this and trying to do our best to figure out what went on here, to figure out if anything was truly linked to Shohei. And obviously, we never have found anything. Maybe in time, somebody will, but you've got the government report, you've got the sentence, you've got the audio tape of Ippei talking to the bank, impersonating Shohei. Maybe it's time for us to just accept that this guy stole from Shohei, and that's how it went down. And Shohei, and I wrote about this last July, he is oblivious. He is baseball only, and he is the kind of person, maybe the only kind of person, for whom this could have happened to without him knowing.
Yeah, I mean, if everyone thinks they were in on something together, Ippei was even taking shots at Ohtani in his letter to the judge, and the judge said yesterday how it was a really rude and misled letter. So I'm like, wow, they really played it up all the way to him getting his prison sentence and that kind of affecting things. I'm like, I love me a good conspiracy theory in baseball, Ken, but this one just, it doesn't add up to get there.
Again, and I'm inviting anyone out there. If they've got the evidence, you know where to find me. I'm easily accessible. Bring it to me and I'll go look at it. I have not gotten any communications along those lines. And when we checked,
Ken,
we got nothing.
you're not in Jersey anymore, Ken. I can't help you out, buddy.
My heart's still there, Todd.
All right, that's all that matters. That's it.
And hey, Ken's done some good investigative reporting in the past, so you can look back. There's plenty of stories. But Ken, thank you for the time. Good to see you. We'll catch you on Monday on Fair Territory.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, FT Senior Insider Ken Rosenthal with the Inside Scoop. And that includes many topics that we didn't get to today on purpose with Ken because he covered them yesterday on his own live show called Fair Territory. And Alana's out, so it was Trisha Whitaker who knows all about the Rays. They locked in on the Rays for at least 5 to 10 minutes of the show, among many other questions. So go check it out wherever you get shows, pods, the whole deal. FT fam will be right back to do a deeper dive on the Angels signing Yoan Moncada. I'll take it. Deferral jokes is Ippei sentence deferred. I saw that actually multiple times on social media. It's almost like the deferral jokes apply to so many things nowadays that I feel like there's a contingent of fans that try and jump on a comment first to be like, oh, I'm going to be the first one to make the deferral joke.
Too late. Too late.
Too late.
Not
Too
the
late.
first one.
No. All right, let me see what else we got here.
The 17 million, though, the 17 million that's owed to Shohei, that from I forget what it's called. That's deferred for the next restitution. Yes. The restitution money, that's definitely deferred till never. It's never going to get paid back.
See, that's an OG joke right there. That's a nice original right there, Todd. And it's true. The judge even said that from the court case with Ippei yesterday, that the judge hopes restitution gets paid, but was pretty skeptical. I mean, he has no money, essentially, that we know of. He's going to struggle to get a job. He's going to be in prison for a while. Japan is even more harsh on crime like this. Shame is a big word. And he is going to struggle in Japan even to show his face. Like, he might kind of disappear from the public and do the Steve Bartman route of hiding up in the mountains or wherever you can hide in Japan.
And,
yeah,
according to Ippei, he wasn't paid very well. He wasn't paid very well during this time either. So, I mean, $500,000 just doesn't go as far as it used to.
Apparently not. Neither does a nice Porsche to take you around town.
Oh, he gone.
Yeah, that one was tough to swallow when you're trying to tell, the court of public opinion that you weren't getting paid enough to be an assistant, and your most recent salary was 500 G's plus an undisclosed amount on top of that to be an assistant for Ohtani, plus the car. The whole thing just starts to get a little bit gross. And I blame his legal team just as much as him, because he had a lawyer, and that lawyer put that letter together. Of course, he had to sign off on it, but that's a poor job by that legal team. Okay. I have no problem blasting that legal team. You want to come on our show and tell us why you did that and maybe say that it was your client? Okay, fine. But honestly, I would have dropped the client if he wanted me to go that far in that letter. So stupid.
You can't do that. You can't drop them.
Why? If the client's asking you to put something in the letter that you don't approve, you got to be on the same page. I have no idea how this stuff works.
Yeah.
Hot sizzle, Todd father Yoan Moncada to the Angels for 1 year and a guaranteed $5 million. Hasn't played much lately, but he's still in his 20s. He did have a monster season in, I remember, what was it, 2019. He's had some okay time periods in baseball since. Like 2021, he was good. I mean, he was a 4-win player on Baseball Reference Board. That was the last time we really saw a good Yoan Moncada. Only put together 45 plate appearances this year. He's had trouble staying on the field, like Ken mentioned in his segment. Maybe a change of scenery helps the cause. We might have a left side of the infield with Moncada and Tim Anderson on opening day instead of Neto, who Angels fans love and is a good part of the core, but he's going to start the season late, I think, because he's hurt, coming back from surgery. And then Anthony Rendon has now received the message that he's probably going to be riding the pine. What do you think about this one, Todd father? Did you play with Moncada? Did you come across him?
Remember we had this conversation?
Yes.
Kratzy brought it up, and I didn't remember. I did that
unintentionally,
over.
I swear.
No, it's okay. You're gonna make
I
me
do a
look
lot of
bad
hours.
again. Kratzy, he got traded over, and I think I got ousted right after, like a day or two after, right? Kratzy, something like that.
Because you didn't know his name, right? They were like, Todd father, come on, it's Yoan. You're out of here.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, pretty much. But no, I didn't. But he's a good ball player. Like, is he going to play? Will he play third base? Is that what's going to happen here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's saying DH on here. That's where I was confused about. I'm like, listen, is it going to? I mean, they're going to have to battle out, right?
He's not DH. He's not DH, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah, that's.
And I'm not on the Fangraphs lineup right now, but Jorge Soler is the DH for the Angels. Oh, here. We can throw the lineup up there, even if we don't believe in it. Let's throw the lineup up there. This is the Fangraphs lineup. We didn't put this together. So Soler
that's where I got confused.
Yeah, Soler's in right field on this version of the lineup. He's going to play a little bit of outfield. I do think that's a mistake. I love Jorge Soler's bat. That is not a first division outfielder defensively. So you got Taylor Ward in left, Rengifo second, batting second, Trout center field third. I'm reading this out for the crowd that listens later. Soler cleaning up, playing right field, Shanuel at first, Neto at shortstop, who again I don't think will be ready for opening day. Ohtani catching, then Moncada DH eighth, and Rendon ninth, third base. So at least for opening day purposes, you're going to have Moncada at third. I mean, he's in his 20s. He should still be able to handle third base.
Well, what happens if Rendon comes out? What happens if Rendon bangs out in spring training? I mean, you can't just give him third base.
Okay, then I you know what? I'm going to say this. The best problem in the 21st century would be if both Yoan Moncada and Anthony Rendon are so damn good in 2025 that you have to figure out playing time for both of them. I feel safe with that statement.
I agree 100%. I don't know what's going to happen. Kratzy, you can talk more about it, but you can't just. I know he signed 1 year, $5 million. You still got a guy. I get it, injuries and some other crap that happened. All of a sudden, this year he might come out of the woodworks and be the Anthony Rendon of late. Will it happen? I don't know. I know these Angel fans, they come on here and they get after me about any little thing I say, so I got to be weary. But I'm not saying Rendon can't come out if he's healthy and bang out and get 30 homers. I'm just saying.
I don't think it's weary. I think it's leery, or you have to be sleepy. Either way, you have two guys that are battling for a position that in the last few years, I'm going to be flat honest, haven't looked like they wanted to battle for any position. Now, you look at Anthony Rendon and what he did. You're talking about MVP caliber player before they signed him. And you have to figure out, this is less about physically figuring out what these guys can do. It's more of what motivates them. Can Ron Washington be the third baseman whisperer and get both these guys to be motivated, get both these guys to be competitive? I love it. Put two non-competitive people or people that have shown they're not that competitive in the recent years up against each other, and maybe there's a spark there. Maybe they can do it because they're both physically gifted. Yoan Moncada, what he did from the 18 season to the 19 season, I think he had 217 strikeouts. He cut it down by over 60 strikeouts the next season. I remember them being like, you strike out way too much, no chance. He was like, look what I can do. And he did it. Like, to me, it's in there. Does he want to do it? Can he do it? Can he battle through little nicks and bruises, bumps and bruises? Don't know. How much does he want to be a big leaguer? Because if he wants to, if either of them want to, they are all-star caliber players.
Yeah, the reason I'm worried about Moncada is he's been battling hip and groin issues. And, last year, what was it? It was April. Left adductor strain out at least 3 months when he's running to first base. When you start to have those guys that it's just they're running and they just drop like they got sniped, I'm just like, man, there might be some chronic concern here. So we'll see. Maybe he's gotten through it. No, you think I'm off?
Chronic
you can go
concern?
against me.
Is he 36? No. Chronic concern of, hey, I need that taken care of. Sorry, we're too far advanced medically, physically, physical therapy stuff. You got an entire offseason to get your body right, and saying you have a chronic hip issue. Like, look at Corey Seager. I think Corey Seager's had hip surgery and back surgery, and the dude still figures out a way to get out onto the field. And he had it at 22 years old, I think. It was early when he had it. Guys have injuries, but to say chronic at 28, Moncada's 29 years old, that's your prime. You're in your prime. To me, that chronic stuff starts coming up at 34, 35, unless you don't put the work in. Trout was on here. Trout was on here talking about it. He's like, I got to do more now. He's like, I got to do more than I used to at 26, at 24, at 22 when he's in the big leagues. And that's why, that's where I think guys need to step up and do the extra stuff. So I don't necessarily believe in the chronic issues at that age.
Okay. I agree to disagree. I just think bodies are different. Depends on the body type, depends on the work ethic, depends on just certain bodies breaking down earlier than others in baseball. It's not like we haven't seen it before. So it'll be super curious to see how the Angels do with both Tim Anderson and Yoan Moncada, see if both those guys are starting out on the left side of the infield. At least the Angels are doing things. I give them credit. I was shocked that Moncada got guaranteed $5 million for this coming season based on what's gone on the last couple of years with him. I was shocked. I would love to know what the second best offer was. Great job by his rep, whoever it is.
Profar. Think about Profar last year played for $1 million. Go look at what Profar was not good the year before. I was surprised at that big league deal. Moncada getting $5 million makes Profar's look like nothing. That was for him to be able to get this money, great job by his rep.
Yep. I just didn't think, Profar's body's breaking down. I just think he just had a bad year. But whatever. Agree to disagree. Let's get to Whit Merrifield next on FT. Be right back. I wonder if the Angels are taking an approach of some really good coaching and seeing if they can find value in players that need a change of scenery. You think that? Kratz? Because it's like,
I
all
mean,
right,
why
we've
not?
got Wash, we've got Darno. Help me out. Some of the other coaches that come from
EY.
Atlanta, EY, Bo
Well, I
Porter's
mean,
there, right?
Bo Porter's there.
Mm-hmm. Right, but
But,
they're taking guys that have come from other places that have helped certain players resurrect their careers that needed a change of scenery, and that could help the cause. So we'll see if that pans out with someone like Moncada.
hopefully. That's every player's goal in the offseason. Todd, tell me if I'm wrong. Did you not were you in the offseason ever going, you know what? I just hope I stay on the field. No, by this time in the offseason, you were like, dude, I'm gonna win an all-star. I'm gonna be an all-star. I'm gonna go back to being an all-star. Like, that's what everybody thinks in the offseason.
Agreed.
Yeah, for me, with the Angels, no, I'm with you here on this one. I'm just trying to think of where they're at with this one, Todd Father.
Yeah.
This kind of conversation popped up last year in the offseason, including on this show with Ron Washington, who I love. And you got the vibe that they were going to kind of fix the Rendon situation. Now, there might not be a situation to fix. His body just might be breaking down and done. And he's just not a major league starter anymore. But last offseason, it was like, oh, can they be the Rendon Whisperer crew, this new coaching staff? It didn't happen.
I remember Ron Washington telling me in Cincinnati when we were there for foul territory, watch out for this guy. Wait till he's ready. He's a different guy. And it never happened. I mean, was it hope? Was it a wish? Or did he see something in him that he was like, wow, this is going to be the Rendon of old? It needs to be done now. And I think he has it in him to do it. Will we see it? That's only time will tell.
We shall see. Back in 20 seconds. Whit Merrifield, free agent, joining us. Here we go. Whit Merrifield joining us right now from the best golf clubhouse in home baseball. Whit, good to see you, man. I know you're a big football guy too, so I actually want to start here because after this weekend, it's baseball talk. So what do you think the NFL does well that MLB can take a page from? And I'll just bring up a couple concepts to get your take on and obviously offer whatever else. Good to see you, dude. But they have a neutral site for their championship game. That's actually been talked about in the past. Like, can we do a day or two of the World Series and then run the rest of it? Just throwing it out there. I know that's an easy no for most players, but that or anything else that comes to mind with the NFL and their amazing parity actually that they offer with that salary cap, which I know will open up a can of worms for you.
That's a good question. And honestly, I've really never thought about it. I think the neutral site, I think is just a hard no. Football, I get it. It's one game. There's such a advantage being at your home site, so I get being neutral. But baseball, I mean, it's a little bit of advantage, not that much, really. Really, the advantage is in the playoffs. The crowd can be an advantage, but it's batting at the bottom of the bottom of the inning. And besides that, I mean, I don't know. Salary cap, I won't get into right now with you guys. So that's a whole
Yes.
other topic. But I don't know. I mean, they do a good job of promoting the game. I think we do as well. I just think it's just different. We play 162 games. Um, our Tuesday 1:30 game just doesn't hold the same value as a Sunday night football game. It just doesn't. So it's hard to compare the two sports, but football is always trying to improve. Basketball is, we are, golf is. Every sport's always trying to improve their product and make it better for the fans.
Wait, you said neutral site for the playoffs would be bad, right? But we could have that scenario if the ATHs of Sacramento or the Tampa area Rays from the Steinbrenner field make the playoffs. They've come out and said most likely they're not going to play in those fields.
I'm okay with that. I mean, that's a little bit of a unique situation, but I don't think anybody really wants to go to Sacramento to play a playoff game, so I'm okay with finding something else out.
Yeah, but think about it. If you sign with one of those teams, you've played in front of those fans the entire year.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but uh, I I don't know. I mean, it'd be almost being a college basketball fan I am. It could be like almost like going to a Cameron Indoor Stadium, where it's not the biggest stadium, but maybe it's the craziest because it's small and there's people on top of you. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't thought about that. I haven't thought about what if Sacramento or Tampa makes the playoffs. I don't know the answer to that, but I mean MLB is going to want to have as many people in the game as they can, so they're going to want ticket sales up. So I'm sure they'll try to move it to a bigger venue. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do.
When we talk about free agency, been a part of it, you're being a part of it, everybody is. You hear the rumors, the speculations, you get the calls. Do you try and stay out of that, or you want to hear every little thing that's going on? Because it is your livelihood at the end of the day.
Last year I tried to stay in loop with what was going on. It was my first time going through it, and so I uh, I tried to stay, I guess, in touch with what people, what are the rumors that were being circulated, but also with my agent who he had talked to, which a lot of times didn't line up with what you're hearing online or on TV or whatever it may be. Um, and then it comes out, Philly calls me last minute, and within a week the deal's done, and they were never on the radar. So I've gone into this offseason um, in a different spot because I didn't have the year last year that I had the year before in Toronto. So um, the expectation, I guess, wasn't the same, but also I've learned that um, you never know who's going to call. It doesn't matter what you're hearing or what your agent's telling you. Somebody can call last minute. So I've just kind of not really paid much attention to it. I answer calls from my agent when he calls me, obviously, but yeah, just kind of been a lot more relaxed this offseason, which has been nice.
Do you look at teams that have openings like yourself? Are you ever just scrolling on the pooper and like looking at it like, I wonder who doesn't have a. I feel like getting 650 at bats as a second baseman. Screw this utility thing. Like, who doesn't have a second baseman? Do you ever do that, or do you look at even like the most recent signing that we are just talking about? Yoan Moncada got $5 million. You're like, I feel like I could get that. Like I'm out on the field.
It's hard. I mean, that's hard to not compare when you see guys get certain contracts and you try to compare yourself to them. I mean, that's just human nature to do. But I don't put a whole lot of value in it because certain teams see players certain ways. But one, don't scroll in the pooper. It's bad for you. Don't do that. Get in, get out. Don't want you getting hemorrhoids. You're done catching. You don't need hemorrhoids anymore.
Whoa, whoa. First of all, the man doesn't have hemorrhoids, okay? And what is
Anymore.
just because you sit there? Just because you sit there longer?
Hey, that's what happens, man. Read a book.
I am reading the book. That's why I'm in there so long.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I
come
heard
on.
you guys talking a little bit about before I got on about some of the chronic stuff that goes on, and that's something I've really taken pride in my career, and I don't think it gets valued like it should. Is guys that are on the field, guys that stay on the field, and it's honestly, I feel like now that I'm 36, and I haven't spent a day on the IL. When there's times that I could have, I honestly look back and like, did I do it wrong? Because there were times when I was on the field, maybe not at 100%, but it felt like it was my job to be out on that field. That maybe took away from, I guess, the kind of player that or the numbers wise, what I could have done if I just would have gone on the IL and not come back till I was 100% healthy. And I don't think that's right, but I feel like that's the way certain teams are valuing guys and paying guys because of sheer raw numbers. So I heard you guys talking before I came on here, and I just wanted to address that because it's kind of bothered me a little bit over the last couple of years that I've kind of reflected on that and been like, man, doesn't seem right.
Hit on that a little bit. I don't know how much you heard because I was kind of going against Scott saying I don't believe. I'm not saying everybody can't, but like the chronic part of it. Like, how much did you put in to stay on the field? You said, I'm very proud of not spending any time on IL. And Michael Young was the exact same way. He was very proud of not spending time on the IL in his career. How much do you put into that? And do you feel like, obviously you can't blanket statement everybody, and I don't want you to mention people, but do you feel like guys don't put enough time in to staying off the IL? Position players.
Yeah, because I feel like it's not viewed in a positive light. It's not appreciated when guys aren't on the IL. It's if a guy is, and this happens throughout the league on every team, but when a guy starts struggling, you're never going to feel 100%, especially after once spring training is over. You got that maybe first series of adrenaline of opening weekend, and then you're not 100% ever. And when guys start struggling, you feel little nicks and knacks that are everyone feels, and you can lean into that a little bit if you feel like, okay, well, let me take a couple weeks off and get this wrist right, or get this foot right, or get this hamstring right. Call it getting it right, but really, I just need to take a break away or take a step away and reset. And then when I come back, maybe this funk I'm in will be over. And you see it all the time, and that's just it's not right, but it's not policed. It's teams don't punish guys for that. Teams don't devalue guys for that. It's almost the opposite. It's like if it works for the guy, okay, well this guy's numbers were good. He had 500 at bats when he should have had 650 at bats, but his OPS and all these, his WRC plus, they were all good. Okay, well when he started to slide, he got away, and so that's why I look back and I'm like, man, maybe I played the system wrong, and I hate that. I hate feeling like that because it's not what I think how the game should be played. But who
No,
knows?
it's a
Maybe
good
I'm
call.
doing it wrong.
So rate stats are valued much more now than counting stats versus even 10 years ago, right? Where they're like, okay, I want to know what this player's doing on a per game basis, and I don't care that he gave me 160 or whatever, right? There's actually one step further from this too. And I like parts of this because I think it helps certain players get out of slumps, and they've talked about it. Hey, bad batted ball luck. We're looking at your peripherals, and it says that you actually should be much better. And I think parts of that are good, but there are other parts of that that point to players who never actually reach those expectations and just aren't that good. And they become, for lack of a better term, like a sabermetric darling, right? And we've seen players like that. I'm not going to throw certain names out there right now, but I don't know. That's my take on how the game has changed. And then I think players try to adjust to the way that front offices are evaluating things, right? Where they're like, okay, they don't care if I play as much, then I'm just gonna, say that something's bothering me and miss a couple weeks, like you're saying. And it's not being valued that you actually need that player on the field because the backup is going to give you much worse production.
Yeah, well, I think too that it's the way the game is, the way that front offices are approaching the game. You got mandatory off days, and from the time these guys are in the minor leagues, if you're a top prospect, you're playing like I think they play 6 games a week. You're playing like four, and you're getting 2 mandatory days off, something like that. So you're kind of bred from the time you're young that it's not normal to play every day. It's not normal to go through a full season, and there's in every sport you're seeing that. You're seeing load management days in the NBA, and maybe not so much the NFL or football, but yeah, it's different mentality of going about playing this day and age. And I hate to sound like an old guy, but um, I was always under, there's a famous Wally Pipp story that's always stuck with me. And it took me a long time to get to the big leagues. And once I got there, I didn't want to take a day off. And I don't want this guy that's working in AAA to come take my job to have a chance to come up and go 4 for 4 with 2 homers. And now it's like, okay, well, maybe Witt's not the guy. And, I wanted to get in the door, get my foot in, and never give it up. And that's not really, I guess, the common mentality anymore. Which is, like I said, maybe I'm in the wrong, but it's different.
I don't believe you are. I don't believe you are. Keep grinding until they take the jersey from you. Not sit in the tub until they give you your jersey back. But I got a question for you. Now, I want you to turn a little bit to the left so the light hits you pretty good, like this.
You see? Oh, you've been seeing some grace?
No grays. I don't see any. I was looking at your beard because the Yankees need a second baseman. Would you be willing to shave that? Because I've never seen that face like smooth shave. Like, are you okay with that rule? Like, if the Yankees are like, hey, we need a second baseman.
Kratz, we played together when I had to shave my face.
You shaved it. It was never.
Kratz,
It was never
killing
shaved.
you, Kratz.
Hey, we played together.
No, it was never. You always had that amount. That was the one rule that you bent. In Omaha, you had it bent. Look at that face. You're like a constant 5 o'clock shadow.
Oh my God, Kratz, he's killing you.
Unbelievable. I mean, yeah, no, my wife would love for me to have to shave my face. It'd be mandatory for me to shave my face every day. She would love that. 100%.
Okay.
So
Witt to the Yankees tomorrow.
I did it in 2022 when I was
All
really
clean?
scuffling. Yeah, all clean. I think it was towards the end of my time in Kansas City, and then first little bit in Toronto. I was full clean.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Last one. Who won your tourney? Since you're
We
sitting
haven't
in
had
the
you
pro
on.
shop,
What happened?
we haven't had you on. Which ones did you come up with a division that you could win for yourself this time again? Where you're like, oh, here's my trophy.
No, you can't do it every year. Then nobody will show up. So you have to
Okay.
kind of hear it, Aaron
Sandbag
Hicks
'em.
won. Yeah, Aaron Hicks won the gross division, so he was the best golfer there. He's nasty. He's so good.
He's so good.
He's so good. And then Jackson Stevens won the net division, so he was kind of a last minute add as well. So that was good for him that he won.
That's cool. I like
And how
that.
did you do?
Yeah,
How did you do?
my game's not great right now. I got a little baby over there, and she's taken away from my golf. So I'll have to tell her about it when she gets older. How much she hurt my golf game these years. But,
I'm sure she's going to care this much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
that's a little much. Kratz, lower it. Lower it here. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Thanks,
Well,
Whit, for coming on, and I'll take care of my hemorrhoids later. I appreciate that.
There you go. Kratz saying goodbye. Whit, good to see you, dude. We'll catch you in a few weeks, okay?
Yeah, good to see you, fellas.
Yep, you too. Whit Merrifield with us on FT Live. Let's pay off this Junior Caminero conversation. So we spoke to Junior earlier this week. He was like one of the big talks of the offseason because of how fun he was over in the Winter League and the showmanship and the play, the homers. And then he went to a Laker game the other day and we were like, you going to see LeBron? Because he's a basketball fan. And he was like, maybe, hopefully. So Junior and LeBron. LeBron makes him look pretty small. And Junior Caminero is he's not super tall, Junior Caminero, but he's a big dude.
He's a big dude. He's like 6'1", like 220, Caminero. And I mean, LeBron, for as much as everyone's like, no, Kobe, Jordan, all that stuff, like if you just take him as a physical specimen, oh my gosh, LeBron is a big dude. All NBA guys are tall. LeBron is got some width.
Right. He's not a tall glass of water, Todd Father.
No, and Junior's what, 6'1", I think. So It's not a small guy, but not the biggest, of course. And man, they are just specimens. These athletes in basketball are incredible.
Do you think that NBA players would be good at baseball if they were playing their whole life? No, very different skill set.
And I've had this conversation. Football players and basketball players are the best athletes, but if you take them, again, I said they are the best athletes. If you take them and put them in baseball, they wouldn't have a shot. Now, if you take baseball players and put them in basketball or football, we would have a shot. And I would stick with that for as long as I live. I know a lot of baseball players that can shoot a basket, that can still hit threes with the best of them. I know baseball players that can catch a football, throw a football 50, 60 yards. Like they can play the game. Again, basketball and football is the best athletes, specimens, but they couldn't hang with baseball. I think we can hang with the other sports.
Okay. I think the best conversion, Kratz, is NBA to NFL. I think there are a lot of NBA players that could play in the NFL. I think that's the best conversion, where there's a lot of guys that could go. No?
Mm-hmm.
They're just
I think sort of.
there's
Yeah.
just so much. There's so much beef. You got to put so much weight on those frames of those NBA guys. So I'd have a tough time. I'd have a tough time saying, okay, LeBron at 6'9", going across the middle. There's just too much length there. I'm just afraid that dude's going to get waffled.
Worked out for Jimmy Graham. I watched him as a sixth man on Miami 15 years. In the weeds, 2 articles to break down, same topic. And there were many others written about this week. It just all kind of fit in. Salary cap was a big conversation in baseball. Parity was a big conversation in sports. And the NFL has the end of their season coming up this weekend. So, Cyrus, Jason Stark, and others wrote about the situation between the NFL and MLB as far as parity goes. I'll take a few notes from Jason Stark first. His article's fresher. He said the Chiefs might do 4 Super Bowl titles in a 6-season span. The Dodgers have won 4 titles in 59 years. He's talking about like the best teams, and the only team he kind of left out was the Yankees, and they really haven't had their dynasty rolling into the 21st century. He's like, the Braves have won 4 titles in the last 121 years. Red Sox 4 titles last 106 years. Giants 4 titles last 91 years. Combine the Phillies and the Astros, big markets, 185 seasons of existence combined, 4 titles. So there are a ton of numbers. I can go on and on. NFL in 18 possible slots in the last 9 years for Super Bowls has just 8 teams making it to the Super Bowl. MLB's number, 12. Basically, he was writing about the NFL having 4 quarterbacks that just dictate everything for the past quarter century. It's Mahomes, Brady, Manning, and you could add Ben Roethlisberger there if you want to just even more sweeten the pot, okay? Even payroll-wise, and we'll get your thoughts, and I'll mix in Cyrus later on, who went beyond like the championship level and looked more at who's making the playoffs. But one more note here, looking at top 5 payrolls, we just had that with the Yankees and Dodgers. Also, it was pretty good for business, and it doesn't happen that often. In the last 35 World Series that we've seen, we have had 2 out of the top 5 payrolls match up. Let's see. In 2018 with the Dodgers and Red Sox, obviously we just had it. We had 1999 with the Yankees and Braves, 1996 with the Yankees and Braves. That's it. So let's start there, because I do want to get into the parity discussion, because there are a lot of fans who think that they have the solution right now. Do you think they have the solution, Todd Father? I know we've been hard on this topic, but even let's take the salary cap out of it. Do we really have a parity problem in Major League Baseball? Or is it like 5 to 7 teams that just have crap owners that can't figure their shit out?
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
That's 100%. I've beaten on this horse so many times. All these owners, they have money and they complain small market. I don't want to hear it. I am sick of hearing that. They have opportunities to get guys. Teams had opportunity to get Pete Alonso, one of the top 20 hitters in the league. one of the top 3 power hitters, as Kratzy said. This guy, they could have got him for so less money than what they expected other teams are going to get. They just don't go out there and get it because they want to feel sorry for themselves. I can't stand it. So it's hard to hear these small market teams complaining that they can't go out there and buy a big name guy. They can and they should. They're billionaires that can do it. They just want to sit back and not say, oh, well, we don't have a chance at this guy. You do. Every team does.
I think part of this too is if you look at it from a player's standpoint, players have for years constantly asked for competitiveness, asked for a league that essentially is a monopoly. And so when you have a monopolistic sport where there's no other leagues competing against Major League Baseball, you have to make sure everybody is competitive. You don't have to make sure everybody has the same amount of money. You have to make sure they are being competitive and not pocketing the extra cash. So to me, you need to ask yourself as a fan, is my team doing the best that they can to put the best team out there? Whether that's draft picks, whether that's trades, which is the part that I think is super important. Like, teams have the opportunity to go out and make these trades, but most of the time, the teams that don't, the ownerships that don't, they're afraid. They're afraid of losing their jobs. Owners are afraid of maybe breaking even, maybe even losing some money in the situation, which would never happen in another business. You wouldn't make a move to lose money in a business unless that move could make you 3x later on. But they're just fine pocketing the money. They're just fine keeping, as front offices, GMs, well, I'm not going to trade these guys because I'm fine working another 5 years at this job that pays me a lot of money. I'm fine just where I'm at. Instead of how a player thinks, how Whit Merrifield just thought when he was talking, I'm giving everything I have to make sure I'm out on that field to be the last team standing at the end of every year. And I think if we can focus and go in that light and not I don't have as much as everybody else, then you would have more parity because everybody would compete, or you would have more teams pushing all in and the product would improve together as a group.
Yeah, the revenue sharing is not landing in a place where it's then being reinvested, all of it being reinvested. That's the biggest problem in the game right now. I promise you that. There's plenty of penalties. There's qualifying offers. The Dodgers haven't had a top 10 pick in the draft in 19 years. They haven't even had a top 20 pick in the last 12 years. They're also just run really well. They've got a top 10. Even if you take Roki Sasaki out right now, Baseball America had them top 10 with farm system. Like, everything is being pushed against them to not have a great farm system, and they are still thriving. Just like we see in the NFL and the NBA, some organizations are just run better than others, and that's going to be the case no matter what. My fear is we'll have more super teams if you start to cap contracts and limit players, because they're going to be like, well, I'm to get the same amount here or here. I'm going to go to LA or New York, and then I'm going to also make more money on marketing. So if it's going to be that close, I'd rather just form even more of a super team. We're getting a little bit of that right now with the Dodgers this offseason. I think it could get way worse. I truly believe in that. Let's look at the last decade. How many teams have missed the playoffs in the last decade? Of the 30 organizations, is there any fan base that has not seen playoff baseball in the last 10 years?
In the last 10? No, I don't think so.
Every single organization has had playoff baseball in the last 10 years. MLB has the smallest playoff field. People were complaining when they expanded it, but that gives teams more of a chance. I believed in that because I think there were some teams that pick up the pace in the second half of the season and deserved to get a final wild card spot, right? We just saw it. Like, the Mets made a kind of a late surge after a super slow start, right? Didn't they have the last wild card spot this time around? I think.
Wild cards were helpful, whichever it was.
Right, but I mean, even the Padres were a wild card team this time around. I love the wild card. So the NFL and the NHL did not have every team in their league make the playoffs in the last 10 years. How about back-to-back champs? We haven't had one still. It's been a quarter century in Major League
24
Baseball.
24 years.
Yeah. 16 out of 30 MLB teams have won the World Series in the 2000s. More than half the league. How many teams? You want to know the rest? I got it for you.
I was just going to say how many number one seeds in the NFL are eliminated in the first round. The other year we had all the number one seeds gone. Now we have to try to change the rules so the number one seed from the regular season gets an opportunity to move on to the next round. That doesn't happen in other sports. Never happens.
It's a good call. NBA 2000s. How many teams have won a title? 11. NFL 13. NHL 13. MLB 16. 16. So the NBA has seen a team win 6 titles since 2000. That's the Lakers. 3 others have won at least 3 in that time period. In MLB, you've got 6 World Series winners in the 2000s. It's Boston with 4, the Giants with 3. Those are the only teams that have won more than 2 during that time period. NHL has had 6 teams in that conversation win multiple titles. And those 6 teams, the Devils, Red Wings, Penguins, Lightning, Blackhawks, and Kings, account for 15 of the last 24 Stanley Cup champs. The Chiefs have won 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls. And they have a chance to win another right now. Obviously, the Patriots were a powerhouse. I'm just missing the parity conversation, and I just keep wondering, are we picking on the same 5 teams that are making everything look bad here, where you're going to point to your team and say, I don't feel like my team has a chance, and it's the same 5 teams with the same 5 owners that are kind of screwing over their fans? So which side of the pendulum is the problem? Like, to me, Todd Father, the NL West is a great example of, yes, a dominant Dodgers team that has really put together a strong ball club and they spend well. Like the Diamondbacks were in the World Series 2 years ago. The Padres were a win away from taking down the Dodgers, and I think then winning a World Series championship. The Padres and the Diamondbacks are model franchises right now in terms of how they run themselves and make competitive ball clubs. The Diamondbacks just picked up Corbin Burns this offseason, which might be the best move of the offseason. I just don't know what I'm missing here. If the Dodgers won 5 titles in a row, I'd be like, maybe we have a problem. But the NFL has a problem. I'm bored for Sunday. I'm going to watch, but I'm bored for Sunday. I'm sick of watching the Chiefs. I don't want to watch them again. I want to watch some other flavor. I don't want the same ice cream every freaking Sunday once a year. You know?
Hey, I get it. And I get it totally. This is why baseball is probably the
I love my cookies and cream. He's waiting for his ice cream flavor.
No, he's not getting in yet. Hey, all I know is, listen, you can be a really bad team in baseball and you can still beat a really, really good team like the Dodgers. And that's why baseball is a tough sport. You got to come to play every single day. It's a rarity to see that upset in football. Same with basketball for the most part, man. But baseball, you got to hit to win, and you got to play defense and all this kind of jazz. I'm rambling because I'm just waiting for Kratzy to talk. So I'm gonna let Kratzy
come on.
go
Let's go. What do you got? What do you got for us, Kratz? What's your complaint?
I could eat vanilla ice cream every single day, and I would not complain. And go Birds. That's it. That's it. This Sunday is not a boring. It's not a boring day.
Birds.
It's going to be a great day. The Birds are going to win, and as soon as the Super Bowl's over, that means baseball season's starting. Let's go, boys.
Right. That's right. But tell me, if you're a fan of a team in the past decade, who is the fan that should be really angry? Like, I start going through the list, and there's not that many. Like, even right now, you're a White Sox fan. Your team was good not that long ago. You're in the biggest market in the AL Central. I was making fun of a fan during Ken's segment because he starts writing about how everyone should feel sorry for him, and he wants baseball to miss games. And I'm like, wait, you're a fan of the White Sox? You had the worst record in baseball last year, and you guys didn't spend, and you're saying, wah, it's not fair. You're in the AL Central. You guys should be leading in payroll. We should be complaining about you and your team, if anything. That's where I'm just missing the boat. I'd love to have more conversations about this, guys, with fans and understand where they're at. But often when I have a conversation, it's with the same few fans, and they're on the same page with me in that it's a Pittsburgh fan. And they're like, we only had one run, since I've been paying attention to sports. And it was 2013 to 15. And I'm like, okay, there's a different situation going on there, right? Let's lock in on what's going on with your specific team. To me, that's different. Most fan bases don't have a case for this right now. We're talking about maybe 5 teams that have ownership issues. The rest of baseball's fine. Did the Royals get to keep their Patrick Mahomes?
Yep, cost him
Yes.
$281 million.
Bobby Witt Jr. is essentially a Royal for life. Julio Rodriguez is a Mariner for life. And go down the line. You can keep those guys. Also, if you're shrewd and you're smart, you offer those contracts earlier in their careers. Mookie Betts should have been a Red Sox for life. He's in a big market. They messed up. They kept
He gone.
undercutting their
Yes,
offer.
sir.
He gone.
Now,
All right, let's
now
get
the Dodgers
to
will not lose another game. Go ahead.
exactly. Can't wait. I don't know why we're playing this season. We joke, but I don't know. I think the parity is more of an issue in other sports, and all of the data backs it up.
Yep.
So comment below if you're looking at this later on. Let's get to the Nationals team preview next. Here we go, FT fam. We got the Playmakers Classic around the corner. Yes, there are drinks, cocktails if you're of age involved. So Todd Father wanted you all to know. You like that. You like that. But we also want to bring up that there's a live auction. So this is run by the Players Trust. Obviously, we're super supportive of initiatives by both the league and the players when they've got them. Often we get asked, we're like, yeah, let's talk about it. So we've been plugging this, several times per month. What we'll add to the table is, in addition to trying to go get yourself a ticket online to this event, which is coming up in downtown Phoenix, we now have auction items that'll get donated, obviously, to the Players Trust. And then whatever they make off them goes into the money that they give to charity. So we've got Super Bowl tickets, LX. I'm guessing that's for next year, right? LX? Is that
Yeah,
next
60.
year? I'm okay.
Not
60.
sure.
I'm not good at Roman numerals.
It's 59
I didn't
this
learn
year.
that.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah, we don't learn that in Jersey. Derek Jeter autographed bat is also up for auction. So hit that
Derek
QR code.
Jeter, number 2.
Very good. Very good. So more auction items available, but there's a live auction running right now, part of the Playmakers Classic. And if you want to learn more about it and you're going to be in the Arizona area, you can get yourself over to, that's a little broad, the downtown Phoenix area, then go check out more information. Here it is. Third time they're doing this. They moved it from Vegas to downtown Phoenix to hit it during spring training. MLB current players, many of them, I saw the list the other day. I think it's like in the 30 range that are there hanging out with you. You get to see actually how down to earth and cool people are in baseball, or at least most people. Live performances. And this is all going in, and they'll talk about it there. Academic and athletic programs give a lot of people that deserve an opportunity a better position to succeed. Playerstrust.org to get your tickets. Be right back to talk Nats. Here we go. Andrew Golden writes for the Washington Post, joins us right now for the first time on FT to review the Washington Nationals coming up for the 2025 season. Andrew, great to have you on here for the first time. Appreciate you stopping by. How you doing?
Good. How y'all doing? I'm looking forward to talking with you guys. I'm excited.
Yeah, us too. Let's rip through this. All right, so let's hit the storylines, and we'll jump right into what we want to get into with the Nats, and then some bonus questions after that.
Cool.
Here's your review. 2025 Washington Nationals storylines. They had the fewest homers in the NL in 2024. They had a little thump. Is it enough, especially with the core that they'll have for a full season now too, like James Wood and Dylan Cruz? Next step for the core, like CJ Abrams, James Wood, and Dylan Cruz. We'll get to that. And bullpen questions. No Kyle Finnegan. Not a ton of work. Actually, some other subtractions we can get into as well this offseason. Are we okay with that? And the NL Beast, 3 really, really good teams that they're looking at as competition in the division. All right, so let's start at the top. This team didn't have enough pop last year, and we thought they should have gone after Pete Alonso, or at least I'll speak for me, and Kratz agrees. I know Przinsky agrees. I'm sure Todd Father agrees as well. But what did you think of what they did this offseason to put the offense in a better chance to thump?
Yeah, I think that was the big question. It's been the big question for the past couple of off seasons is how can they add more power to their lineup? They signed a lot of guys to 1-year deals, but would they sign a guy to a longer term deal to kind of get some more thump into their lineup? Pete Alonso was a guy I was kind of interesting. I also was kind of into Christian Walker too. That was another guy I kind of liked. But I think they did a good job in terms of trading for Nathaniel Lowe, adding Josh Bell, and as you guys mentioned, they're kind of hoping for improvements from James Wood and Dylan Cruz to kind of add some power there. But I think they did a good job overall. Like I think Josh Bell, it depends on which Josh Bell you're getting. Obviously, he can be kind of streaky. But if you're getting the Josh Bell that he was when he was last in DC, that's a really, really good player. Nathaniel Lowe, obviously, when he was with the Rangers 2 years ago, I think hit 26 home runs. I want to say 27. And he said he wants to get back to that this offseason. And so I think they'll definitely increase their power just with those guys alone.
Very nice. Now let's talk about the young core right here for the Nationals. C.J. Abrams had an all-star year marred by basically the suspension, as we know. And, it was a rough second half. Now talking about James Wood and Dylan Cruz, are these guys going to step up here? They just got their feet wet a little bit. Talk a little bit about the young guys coming up.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they all can do, especially James and Dylan. I think the two of them are definitely getting their feet wet last year. You looked at James, like he was kind of getting a feel for what the big leagues were like, and he still produced at a high level. And then Dylan had that final month to kind of get his feet wet as well. He showed you could really hit fastballs well, struggle with breaking balls a little bit. So I'm interested to see how he adjusts there. And James hit the ball on the ground a little bit more last year. So I'm kind of interested to see how he adjusts. And then obviously CJ, he had an all-star first half. And I just want to see, can he turn that into a full season's worth of production? But I think obviously, as you're getting adjusted as a young player, it takes some time to figure out how teams are pitching you. And kind of how you adapt and adjust. So I'm expecting a big year for all those three, especially CJ. This is his third full season with the Nationals, and so I'm expecting a big year for him.
The Nats non-tendered their all-star closer, Kyle Finnegan. Now, there's names like recently signed Jorge Lopez and Jose Ferrer. Where's this closing innings going to come from? Because it's a huge part of a bullpen.
Yeah, so they just signed Colin Prochet to a minor league deal this morning. So I think that will definitely help. But yeah, Kyle Finnegan was interesting, right? Like I think there was a question of do you sign him to $8-9 million to be your closer, or do you reallocate those resources for free agents? I think they decided to do that. I think the big question was if they knew they were going to non-tender Kyle, why not trade him at the deadline? That was my big question. But I think they're just expecting their young guys to kind of take a step forward. I look at Zach Brixey as a guy who could take a step forward. They're getting Mason Thompson back from Tommy John, so that might take some time. They have Derek Law, who can definitely help on the back end. He was a late inning reliever last year. So they have some pieces, but they're definitely young. I think it's the biggest question mark for them heading to the season. So your guess is as good as mine. I'm actually kind of interested to see how it all plays out. But I think Colin Poche and Jorge Lopez will definitely be at the back end. I think Jose Ferrer took a big step forward, and the other guys will have to fill in.
Now we got to talk about the team-wise here. They were 14-25 against the NL East. Gauntlet of a schedule. They're playing against some of the best teams, Atlanta, New York Mets, and the Braves. How are they going to do this year coming up, knowing that they got to face these guys again with the guys that they picked up? How will they do against this team, and how will they stack up in the NL East?
That's kind of the big question, right? When I look at their offseason, I think they've actually had a really good offseason, but can they kind of compete against the guys? Actually, last year against the Braves, they had a winning record against the Braves and performed pretty well. So it's mainly the Mets and the Phillies who have both gotten better, and the Braves are obviously going to be the Braves. And so I'm interested to see, can they hit for enough power to kind of compete with some of those teams? I'm not really sure. I think the Mets got better. I think the Phillies are just as good, if not better than they were last year, and the Braves are the same thing. And so I think they can survive because they prove they can compete against the Braves, but I don't know about the Phillies and the Mets. And the Braves, obviously, as they get Strider back, they obviously still have Chris Sale. They obviously have that great lineup. And so we'll see if they can replicate that again like they did last year.
Is ownership holding this team back? Is ownership holding the team back from like really pursuing, like we said, like that Alex Bregman, that kind of Jason Worth from 2011 or 2012 type of contract with Pete Alonso, that type of thing?
I think there definitely were some talks that they're limited in terms of what they would spend, maybe compared to a decade ago. And so I think there are some limitations there in terms of how much they're willing to spend. I also know that Mike Rizzo also talks about not wanting to hand out contracts to guys with qualifying offers because they really care a lot about their draft picks, especially restocking their farm system. But I definitely agree that I think that it's going to be harder for them to compete if they aren't willing to spend the way they were a decade ago. I think given the mass and the holdup and all those different things, I think there are some limitations in terms of how much they can spend.
Does it revolve around the possibility of the team being sold? I know the whole Masson stuff's been going on for longer than you've been alive, Andrew. Like that stuff's been ever since there was a Nationals. There wasn't an Andrew Golden. Now there's no more Masson issue. But the sale, do you feel like some of the possibility of it being sold?
I know my colleague Barry Luga wrote a couple of weeks ago that Ted Leonsis was kind of the front runner, but he hadn't made an offer this offseason. But I think that's kind of going to be lingering over the team. I think there'll always be a question, right? Like, are they waiting for the right price? Will they get the right price? So I think that also is always going to be lingering over, and definitely a question of will they sell the team and will they get the right price? But for now, they're not, and they're going to operate as if they still have the team. And, it's a matter of, are they willing to make the financial investments necessary to take this team to the next level?
Andrew, one more for you from my side. How are we feeling about third base for the team, short-term and long-term? It seems like they're trying to leave a little bit of a lane long-term for Brady House. I'm okay with that. But on the short term, it's disappointing because I feel like this team could have made more of a surprise as a contender in the National League for a wild card spot if the lineup looked a little more whole. I like parts of it in the top half, but I mean, you tell me right now for the projected lineup, Jose Tena is there. Is that good enough for a playoff team?
No, I think Jose Tena or Trey Lipscomb, I think, are the two options for third base. But I think the key for them is they don't want to block prospects, and they've repeated that a handful of times this offseason. And so I think Brady's going to get every chance to try to get that if he can perform well. Another guy I like is Caden Wallace. They traded him, or they acquired him in the Hunter Harvey trade last year. And he's a guy they like. We haven't really seen him because he was injured, hit a rib injury, and they didn't play in the Arizona Fall League. And so those are two guys who I think could be third base prospects. It's just a matter of how do they perform this year. I think Brady House has some questions. I've seen him drop off some prospect lists, which has been kind of interesting. Maybe that's prospect fatigue. Maybe that is legitimate questions. But I think they want to give Brady every opportunity to be the third baseman of the future. But he has to perform. And so I'm interested to see how that plays out. Does Brady take the step forward? Maybe does Caden Wallace take the step forward? But I definitely think it's a question, but they don't want to block any prospects. And so they're leaving it open.
Okay, we'll see. I mean, depth is important. And yeah, House, I don't know enough to make a comment yet. I haven't seen enough of him. I do know he had a down year, so that's probably why he fell off some lists, or at least
he's also young.
dropped.
I think he's like
He's young.
I think he's like 21. He's young, so maybe we'll give it some time, but it is interesting. It's interesting for sure.
No, that is fair. That is fair. I think you are too, right? You are early 20s.
I'm 25, not as young as Brady.
There you go.
Still a prospect in the writing world.
I'm still a prospect. Exactly.
Well, when I was 25, I looked 12, and social media let me know about it almost every day when I was on television. So the beard definitely helped. I wasn't allowed to do that back then. But Andrew, great job. Great to have you on here, man. Really appreciate the time. We'll do it again. We'll have you on during the season, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. All right, you can catch more of Andrew's work. Obviously, you can follow him on socials, but also in the Washington Post. Be right back. We got a Philly special right here, being that the Eagles are in the Super Bowl this weekend. Bryce Harper is our over-under BetMGM futures, 28.5 home runs. Over-under, we got to go to our Philly specialist, Erik Kratz first. And we're coming off a 30 home run season. Yes, 30 home run season for Big Bryce last year. I'll give the last 3 seasons for Nats fans. 30. He had 21 in 2023 because he missed time. He also missed time in 2022, so he had 18. I'll give you one more. 2021, he had 35. What do we think?
all these overs, I just feel like I thought last year he was going to have a bounce back year, and he would have had way more than 30, and he went to a massive, massive slump because of an injury, a power slump. He was still hitting decent average and getting on base, but I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over because I'm believing in what the Phillies have. I'm going to go over in the homers.
Todd Father?
I just think where he plays, his home field is a big advantage. I would say over 2. I'd say about 33 to 35. I think he's going to have a pretty good year.
I'm going under just based on injury history the last few years. I just got to play the percentages.
Yep.
So I'm going under. And he actually played a good amount last year, right? I know he was playing hurt, but he only got to 30. So I'm going under. I got the 20s for me. And
big year for the Phillies. They got to get going. They got to get going.
Big year for the Phillies, but I think they're going to crush the regular season. So if they're like, Bryce has something, we got to make sure Bryce is Bryce for the playoffs because that's the guy they need. They got to get over the hump in the playoffs. This team's getting older, and he's clutch as hell.
He's shown up in the playoffs too.
I know.
Not everybody.
So I'm like,
not everybody
I don't
has.
care. Exactly. I don't care if Bryce needs extra time because he's not 20 anymore. That's fine. Big game coming up this weekend. Grab this big game boost pack on BetMGM. You'll have 3 ways to boost your odds on any big game bet. Odds boost token, SGP boost token, live odds best token, all there for you. Activate one of those boost tokens for any big game bet, and you'll receive a bigger payout if your bet wins. Gambling problem or concern, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Very quick on our way out here. Thoughts? Super Bowl? I'm going Eagles with my heart, and I am going to throw some money down on them just because I'm sick of the Chiefs. So I'm a big Kratz fan this weekend.
Doc?
Chiefs. Chiefs by 3.
So the refs will be involved as usual.
Yeah, that's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
It was actually juicy. We could have made a case for throwing this earlier in the show, but we like the people that stick around for the full 2 hours. Brian Cashman on Yes Network last night. Quote, when I acquired Jazz Chisholm, I acquired Jazz to be our second baseman and moved Gleyber to third the rest of last year. Aaron Boone, wanted to do it the other way. He moved Jazz to third after we got him and Gleyber to second because Gleyber didn't want to move to third. He was unwilling. Gleyber saw it and he replied, still, with a sleepy emoji and a laughing emoji, and then said, just turn, with a calendar emoji. Very 21st century reply. But then he deleted that, but we already saw it. And I'll use an Erik Kratz line here, Todd Father, for Gleyber. Say it with your chest. You're on a different team. You and the GM didn't see eye to eye on this one. Go kick it and smash 30 homers in the AL Central.
And you've said it. You've been talking about it. He's gonna have a really good season. I think he is too. I think this takes a little pressure off him, and understandably, New York is a tough place to play. I thought he had an excellent year last year, but this is kind of like, all right, let's turn the page. Forget about everything else. The drama's over. I'm ready to go with another team and go out and bang. And I think he's going to do even better than what he did with the Yankees. And I think he's with an organization that's not going to ask him to do too much. They want a lot out of him, but at the same time, just be yourself. And we're going to see a lot of good things from Gleyber.
Sometimes past performance is is more pressure than outside distractions. Like the fact that what this dude did, what Gleyber did in his second full season in the show, like that was what was expected. So you're always, as a player, looking back like, how do I get back there? How do I get back there? To me, 30 pumps with Detroit, I think it's going to be the same old, same struggles. If he goes and does what he did in the playoffs, it seems like in the playoffs, the year that I played with him in the playoffs in 2020, he did the same thing as he did this year in the playoffs. He just shortened everything up, started driving the ball to right center. And Comerica, I know they moved the fences in, but it's still a big park. don't try to drive the ball out of the ballpark. Drive the ball to right center. Let the Riley Greens run. Let them drive you in. Let Parker Meadows, who's going to be hitting in front of you, run the bases. Like, you sit there and you go, play that game, and all of a sudden those numbers are just going to come back because he's an elite bat-to-ball guy if he's not trying to drive the ball too much. But turning the page, writing a tweet, I would say just leave it up there. I don't know who told him to take it down, but you know what? He said it with his chest, and then he was like, maybe I shouldn't put that out there.
Yeah, why take it down? Do you think that was him, or do you think someone else was like, meh, don't go there? Somebody texted him and said, hey, I would take that down. I'm like, come on. See, do you know, Kratz?
You love the juice. You love the juice. Yeah, that's the problem.
But in the NBA, this isn't even Tuesday. They wouldn't even look at this. They'd be like, this is light.
They don't watch the NBA as much anymore. That's why they always got opinions, man. They always got to say something. Some things are better left unsaid, in my opinion.
So Todd's against it. Todd's and I can appreciate that. I can appreciate people who are saying they're against it, but
who wants drama? Who wants drama all the time? Not me.
I also want to hear why it was brought up again by Cashman. Like, I want to hear the question. All we heard is the answer and not the question of why Cashman didn't just like hop on the Yes Network and goes, guys, you know what I want to say? We traded for, that's not how it happened. But when we get only the tweet of the answer, that's how it's read and perceived. So Gleyber can be a little pissed about it, but that's going to be a nice beard in Detroit, by the way. Check out that beard once Gleyber shows up to spring training. It is going to be tight and nice.
I want to give props to Cash, though. A lot of GMs would give you the cookie cutter answer of, oh, yeah, we just put this player here and this player there, and now we'll have a different lineup for 2025. Cash actually said, hey, we asked him. He said no. He's given us insight. That's what fans crave. Tell us what's happening, because otherwise fans are going to be like, you made a mistake, Yanks. You should have switched him up. And they're like, no, we couldn't. He said no. I mean, I guess technically you can force him. I don't know how that goes. But I appreciate that. I do think Todd Father, who stirs the pot with his players sometimes? Cashman.
Oh.
Cash does.
Yeah,
he said this. And he's been in the league. He's got dirt in his cleats in the front office, however you call that, right? He's got, quarter zips in the closet, however you want to say it. So he called out Gleyber. Remember last year, he called out Giancarlo because he's like, he's not going to play much. He actually, this is the sneaky one that I haven't talked about much. He called out Judge when last year, or I guess 2 years ago at this point, they don't make the playoffs. Judge wants some things to change behind the scenes, right? And it was well documented. The Yankees were getting a little cray-cray with letting the analytics crew lead the crowd. And then Cash, I'm paraphrasing, but we can look back to it at some point, was talking about how they've had convos, but like Judge is really talking about RBIs. Like he almost tried to slide him like, yeah, like he's a player. He's talking about these amateur stats that don't mean much to us anymore. There was a slight there. I promise you. There was a little thing. So I'm okay with it. I like it. I think it's good. Like, say it with your chest. That's what he does more than most. There's probably 5 to 7 GMs, maybe less, that actually tell it like it is in baseball. And I appreciate the access that we get. That's all. I want to know what's going on. That's how I am as a fan. Tell me what's happening. Why do you disagree? Why is Judge calling you out? Right? Tell me what you think. And he's like, yeah, I think that he's behind the times because he's talking to me about batting average and RBIs, and the game is just not there anymore. And that's not how we evaluate players. Okay, cool. I want to hear about that.
Yeah. And, I think back to example for myself. My dad used to call me out when all of a sudden I wasn't playing right or I wasn't giving it 100% effort. I know it's totally different, but, your GM calling you out, I mean, do you take that personal or do you take that constructively? So that's the happy medium you got to figure out. It's very unheard of, but at the same time, his behind is on the line too. He picked you up, and now it's like, all right, show me what you got. So I'm sure GMs want to do that with a lot of players, but they expect some of their bigger players to step up and handle some business. So it is what it is. Some juice is good, but most of it can just stay out of the limelight.
Scott is one of the biggest baseball fans there is. Me and Todd, we played, so we saw the inner workings. We're still all ignorant to what goes on in the front office. And so to me, if you're going to look and listen to see how somebody does it, whether you think Cashman's just, I'm almost on my way out, I can say whatever I want. No, I think he morphs and has transformed in his career. And I know he has, because he's told me, he's like, I can't be the same GM I was when the boss was here, when, it was the mid 2000s and we're getting all these guys. He's like, I've had to change, and he has, and he's done a great job. So I think sometimes when a guy with that much experience and that much success in the front office, putting a really good team on the field that almost always makes the playoffs, you kind of have to listen. Like, whether or not you think he's made good moves or not, you have to sit there and be like, okay. If I'm a GM, I'm like, I kind of want to run it like Cashman did.
Yep. And he's been in the league for a minute, so he can be a little more unfiltered, right? He's got tenure. All right, we'll swing right back, FT fam, to slap hands and point out a couple off-season moves that really stand out. We're almost done with transactions, the big ones. I just want to stay on for a few more minutes, Kratz and I. Todd Father had to dip. But there was a little chatter about how the Pirates should have signed Pete Alonso. I'm like, can you imagine? This is the world that I so badly want to create. And I know I'm on the Pirates a lot this week about Skeen's extension and all that. And Spencer Horwitz is going to play first base for them. And that's fine. But, man, that's what I'm looking for. Can I get one of those one time? And how much could it change the complexion of a franchise like that? It could vault them into the playoffs. It could make them a lot more money. But the risk for the ownership side is, well, what if it doesn't? And what if I only pocket 50 this year instead of, or
20.
30 instead of 50, or whatever that number is, right? Like, how am I going to feed the family? How am I going to distribute those checks to all the rest of the nuttings? That's the part that bothers me, that I just can't get over, right? Like, when I get those questions on socials, I die a little bit inside, because that city deserves it. It's not the only city. We've crushed the Mariners. I've praised the Diamondbacks, the Padres, right? Like, there's good and bad situations, but it just comes up in the chat, and I'm like, yes, Pete Alonso to the Pirates. It would have been the perfect fit this offseason.
There's a few teams, and so count yourself lucky, Pirates fans, if you're gonna roast Scotty for something he says about you. But like, there's a few teams that should not have signed Pete Alonso. Any team that has a really good first baseman, I'm fine with you not signing Pete Alonso. The Rockies should not sign Pete Alonso. The Marlins should not sign Pete Alonso, and the White Sox should not. If the Pirates do that, how that changes their trajectory, it's not crazy change, but it's going to change it in the fact that, okay, now a few other guys start having better seasons because Brian Reynolds is not the number one guy in the lineup that teams have to face. So it just changes the dynamic of teams because he can change it that much. He can change those teams that much.
Thank you. It's one player. It's one signing. It obviously matters what he does on the field, but it also signifies where you're at as a franchise. Jason Worth signing gets brought up a lot for the Nationals back then.
It was a reach.
It worked. But it worked. Who cares that they overpaid? They made it back. That team was good for a while, and I get it. They also had top picks. You get that if you're tanking. You already get that for the most part. It's a little different now. But Strasburg, Harper helped. Harper was gone by the time they won. Soto signing was great. Let's slap. Kratz, there was an article in CBS about favorite offseason moves. They just kind of kicked it around to their writers. So I'll name a few that they liked because some of them were high up on my list. RJ Anderson said, I loved the Rays signing of Ha-Seong Kim. Yeah, I mean, if Kim's in good shape coming off the shoulder, I mean, that is definitely a good value. Matt Snyder, Cubs trading for Kyle Tucker. And Dan Perry said Diamondbacks signing Corbin Burns. Yeah, I mean, position player and pitcher-wise, those are probably my top two acquisitions. I mean, obviously Soto for the Mets stands out, but super expensive and all that. I think Tucker could probably finally put the Cubs back over the hump to be a playoff contender because I do think he's a star. What do you think? Favorite offseason move? It could be under the radar, but it could be one of the big boy ones.
Besides the Marlins giving Michael Brantley a minor league big league camp invite with a minor league deal, that's my favorite offseason move. But I told not Michael Brantley, Rob Brantley. I said Michael
Brantley's retired. What are you talking about?
No, Rob Brantley, the catcher. I told him I'd say that on the show at some point, so it was a perfect time. I love the Tucker move. I thought the Tucker move was the best move in the sense of like an overall trade. Like, wow, that is awesome that the Cubs did it. What they gave away for it, they're like, this is a huge impact for us. I think the Burns to the Diamondbacks, though, helps a team more than any move that I've seen for free agency-wise. I feel like that is like he makes a fringe playoff team, I think, take that next step that already has stars. I was debating between that and the Crochet trade. The Garrett Crochet trade was just, it was a team we wanted to see do something, and they did it. I just don't think it pushes the Red Sox as far as the Burns pushes the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, it could make the Diamondbacks really dangerous for an upset. Kratz hats with 20 seconds to go. What do you got?
Crew that's probably been off on me a little bit. This is the spring training hat for the Mets. All the Mets community. All right, it's the weekend. Let's relax. You guys can all help. You know, you help the Eagles get to the playoffs by the Giants sucking. So it's been nice. Watch the Eagles win. Lay off me a little bit. I know. I'm a negative board player in my career. You made me cry all week.
That's a nice peace offering, and that's a nice logo on the front.
It's awesome. It is awesome. Spring training hats, they're coming in hot.
They're going to finish in first in spring training hats in the division.
Ooh.